Hey guys, Sharon J. Lawrence here, licensed clinical social worker and owner of Sailor Wellness and Therapeutic Services. Thank you for joining us for another segment of 31 Days of Healthy Relationship Tips. We're on day 13, and I tell you, we are live and popping. Like, it's been fire. So if you have missed it, you have missed a treat. So I'm super excited because I'm joined by the amazing Dr. Holly Sawyer. Hi, Dr. Holly.
Oh, thank you. Hey there.
How are you?
Thank you for the warm welcome.
Yes,
I am amazing. How are you?
I am well. I am well. Thank you so much.
Good,
Thank you
good.
for joining us. Everyone, y'all know this is the week of family. So we're talking about families from every angle. And so Dr. Holly's going to get us straight tonight. Everybody's been getting us straight, but she's going to get us straight for Friday night. So I know y'all getting ready to go out or y'all getting ready to get into bed. Either way, I hope you're watching. All right, Dr. Holly, tell the people who you
Yes.
are, where you're from, what you do, and we're going to jump into this.
Okay, so hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Holly. I am the owner and a psychotherapist of Life First Therapy, located in Philly. And I work with professional women of color. Um, that's basically who I am and what I do.
Awesome. Okay, how long have you been in practice?
So I have been, it'll be 3 years in April that I have been in private practice. I started out in drug and alcohol, from outpatient to residential to methadone clinics. And so now I've transitioned to basically focus mainly again to provide therapy to professional women of color. And it has been amazing. It has been amazing, and I love it very much. It is very interesting and unique what professional women of color bring into to therapy. It's some things I think are not like your usual, your norms. Some people do suffer from anxiety, depression, but a lot of people come in with relationship issues. So this was very timely. So thank you for
Mm-hmm.
having me.
Yes, thank you so much. I got excited when you told me that you work with professional women of color. And everybody knows I'm a therapist for therapists. I also provide therapy to professionals and couples, and I do some training and speaking. But anything connected to professionals and anything connected to therapists and the helping professional, I'm all in because I think it's
Yeah.
so important that we make sure that the helpers are taking care of themselves so that they can be better and kinder to themselves and to the people in their lives. So, one of the things that you mentioned was that you have a number of women that you work with who
Mhm.
come in with a particular issue when they're being taken granted for, or taken for granted, excuse me. And I want you to kind of really talk about that so that the viewers and the followers can really get an idea of what it is that you're helping women to address and tackle and change in their lives.
Yes. So, again, professional Black women, that Black girl magic is just flowing in the air. They are thriving in the workplace. However, some of them have come in with issues of feeling that they are just taken for granted. They don't feel appreciated, whether it's a family dynamic from their parents or it could be in an intimate relationship. And the theme is low self-esteem and not knowing how to choose themselves first or how to show up and maybe set a boundary, how to show up in a way that, okay, this is how I would like to be treated versus accepting the shame, the guilt, or I would say things that may come from parents who basically were verbally or emotionally or physically abusive. And so we have to kind of start at ground zero with looking at the family dynamic as to which how they were raised and how does that now show up not only in your relationship with your mother and your father or both, but how does it also show up in relationships with your coworkers, with an intimate partner as well? Because what we learn, of course, in our family dynamic, it spills into other relationships as well. And a lot of times those intimate relationships, they don't work because they have not been able to go back and repair so much of the psychological damage from their childhood, from having poor relationships from their upbringing. So I have clients where they may have a parent who was in addiction. And so that was very traumatic for them, and how they had to survive or depend on another relative to actually take care of them. So what does that look like growing up, right? And then you have the parent who is now in recovery and is like not trying to make amends. Basically, you should just get over it, and continues to not show any empathy or any accountability or responsibility on how they have psychologically scarred or made their child go through some type of trauma. So now, again, I have this adult child who I have to basically go back to that space and revisit all of that trauma and just really start from there and help them rebuild their self-esteem and rebuild what new boundaries look like. Because one thing I tell my clients is, you have people who have these titles: mother, father, uncle, brother, sister. However, the title is not a pass to treat you poorly. It's not a pass to accept mistreatment from somebody. And you have to be able to separate the behavior from the title. Now, that doesn't mean that you're disrespectful to your loved one, not at all. But just because you hold this title, that doesn't mean that you are going to just treat me any kind of way. So instead, this is what this relationship is going to look like. And so, we iron out, the tools that basically they're going to use in between sessions to help them kind of rewire how they are in relation with this person. So that they are not always guilted or shamed or made to feel bad when they didn't ask to be here in the first place. So it's a lot that really comes with that, because there's also the people pleasing piece, but now we want to continue to please the parent because we're guilted and we're shamed into this relationship that was just so traumatic at such a very young age.
Talk a little bit more about the guilting piece, because one of the things that I've often seen is because they have this pain, because they have this trauma, they're trying to do this reconnection thing, either with a parent, or they're trying to recreate it in another relationship. And so they're either triggered, or they feel like they're adapting constantly in order to have acceptance in those relationships. Can you talk about the guilt and what ends up happening with them? Because, they get it's almost like being sucked in, and it's hard to get out of that wormhole.
No, and it definitely is, because even when they try to get out and they'll say, Dr. Holly, I tried this week. I said, no, I try to put myself first, but then I got guilt tripped into, well, you don't love me. Or all that I've done for you as your mother, as your father, you wouldn't do this for me. I even have clients where the parent wants to be financially taken care of by the adult child because you owe me. And so they go down this memory lane in the guilt trip. And now, my clients, they feel bad. Like, what do I do? And I'm like, well, I don't understand how you would actually owe a mother or father for doing their job as a parent. But let's talk about that. Let's unpack that. What is it that you feel that you owe? And so because the guilt has been so ingrained, sometimes they don't have an answer. They just feel like if I just give in, I could just stop the noise, because I'm not a confrontational type person. I don't want to argue. And a lot of them just want the love that they never really actually had. So this is like a way of them trying to recoup that. But I also have to remind them that their mother and or father were also coming from a place of doing the best that they could at the time. So they were also broken children who were raising children. And so this is like a pathology, if you will. So this is where this could stop with you. So you don't do the same thing with guilting, your children if you choose to have children. And then it shows up in a relationship because believe it or not, they will attract that. And when they attract that mate that they're with will find some way to guilt them as well. And guess what? Now it's normal. So I never just really show up. I'm just always in like this guilt space. And that's how I basically move throughout all relationships that I'm in. It shows up at work. I get off at 4 o'clock. I get off 5 o'clock. Oh, well, can you stay to 6 or 7? Yeah, I'll stay, knowing that they may have children or other responsibilities, but they feel guilty if they say no. They feel guilty if they take their PDO. They feel guilty, in so many different scenarios, because again, that has been the narrative in their upbringing for, all their lives mostly.
All right, so we're halfway through. I kind of want to see who is with us. We have... This is good. This is good. So Reverend Stacy is actually joining us. Hi, Reverend Stacy. And we also have people who've been off and on. Deidre Burton.
Yes.
Yep. She said, hi, Dr. Holly. And so this is good. This is good. Okay. Let's see. Who else is here? All right, so people are gradually coming on, encouraging people to share. So make sure we share, because we definitely want people to tune in. We want you guys to post your questions or your comments for Dr. Holly. We are halfway through, and we want to keep getting this information. So as you talk about the guilt, as you talk about the trauma, as you talk about the strained relationships and the desire to have something, even if it's at its worst, it's just that they would be happy to have something that resembles a relationship with someone, even if it means that it's a dismissive nature, towards themselves. So let's start going right into the techniques that you use or the tips that you can give to the viewers if they find themselves in this same scenario. Like, speak to them about how to make that shift, whether it's difficult or not. What helps?
Well, the first thing I go to is boundaries. So it doesn't have to be a big boundary. It doesn't have to be something like so dramatic. It could just be something so small. So for example, I had a client where her mother would text her profusely all throughout the day. Then she'll call and she would think that it was an emergency, and she would pick up and she was like, are you okay? You keep calling, you keep texting, I'm at work. And she was like, no, I'm fine, but you need to answer my calls because we need to talk. And she was like, about what? And her mom was just, again, had this codependency upon her, and it just impeded and spilled over into her not being productive in her day. And then again, she's guilted. So she's like picking up, thinking there's something wrong. So a boundary right there that we discussed would just be like, okay, how many times a day could you ideally talk to your mom, whether it's text or phone? Like, what would that look like where it doesn't create anxiety for you, that it makes you feel okay? Mind you, her mother lives next door to her.
So she sees her all the time.
Wherever she lives, her mother makes a huge intention to make sure that she lives next door or across the street. Yes.
So you're talking about an enmeshed relationship that probably started a lot very early on.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. And so again, looking at this, I always go to boundaries first. When you go to boundaries first, you start to shift the behaviors, not only within yourself, but within others. And when you start to shift behaviors within yourself or others, that then shifts your mindset or your cognitive thinking behind the next time you may interact or speak to someone. So if I see you're picking up less or answering my text less, then that may prompt me to stop calling and texting you as much. So that could be something just as small as that. I have clients where they feel like they have a longing to have a talk or communication about what has been bothering them, because they've just never been able to say it since being in therapy, have the clear communication and the words. Right. And so we practice a lot of I statements. I always tell clients, use I statements. So the person who you are connecting to and communicating with, they won't be on the defense. They won't shut down, because there's nothing to be offensive about, because again, this is me talking about myself. And so the way that they deliver it, I've had clients meet face to face with a father. I've had clients actually write handwritten letters, and then they'll put them in the mail for that person to actually, receive the letter and actually read it. And then that opens up the dialogue as well.
Right.
So those are some of the things that I have done to kind of help people get their voice back, but at the same time, shift behaviors around not only setting a boundary for themselves in a relationship that isn't so healthy, because of course we can't change people, but we could change how we react, and then our behaviors and how we show up in that relationship.
I think you need to say that again, because so many times when people are stepping into therapy, there's a meme right now that is going out or goes around that says, people go to therapy to deal with other people. And I always say, no, people go to therapy to deal with themselves, because there are so many habits and behaviors that we have in place that has influenced how people end up treating us. And the minute that we learn to deal with ourselves and make those changes internally, where it increases our understanding of our worth, it makes a difference how you deal with other people, because you learn to manage you better. And so I just need you to say that again, because it's a process, and people need to be committed to it.
It is, because you're right. A lot of times people will come and they want to focus on the wrongdoing that they are taking in from others, which is okay. But we also have to look at your role.
Yes.
How are you showing up? You being accountable and responsible as well. Not to say that, what this person is doing, you deserve it, or what they're doing is right. But how are you showing up for yourself, so that, again, you can switch the behaviors and what it is that you're taking in and receiving from this person? Because like I said, you can't change people, but you can change your behaviors and how you respond to them when you are in relation with them. And I love my mother to death, and we have not always had a great relationship. But as I grew as a person going into therapy, I said, okay, this is what it needs to look like for me to feel loved and supported. And I cultivated that, because at the end of the day, I know I could never change her behavior, or get something that basically she just wasn't capable of giving. And I had to accept that. But at the same time, I had to be willing to say, okay, what do I need to shift within me? So it was my paradigm, it was my behaviors. And then what does that look like? In what capacity do I show up and have this mother and daughter relationship? Because sometimes, again, we have high expectations for people who hold certain titles, mother, father, or my brother, and we also have to understand that they're human and they're doing the best that they can within their upbringing or their, systematic, system, their family system. Because I don't know what happened prior to me being on earth and how she grew up, but it definitely played a part in how I was raised in our relationship. So again, I needed to shift myself in order to show up and have a healthy relationship with her.
I think that's important. Thank you for saying that as well, because I think so many times people do go into this process of, once I get to this point, that means that because I'm doing better, my expectation is that things should improve across the board with the people that I'm interacting with. And like you said, they may not change.
Yeah.
And you cannot expect, because you've made a change, that other people are going to change. And that's one thing about it. People start walking in their own truth, and then they expect people to just get it. The reality is that when you walk into that therapeutic process, it's not instant for you. So why would it be instant for anyone else? And you went through the treatment. They didn't, right?
True.
Yeah, but there's this expectation. Well, no, it's different.
Exactly.
And I'm letting you know how I feel. So you should respect it, and you should change. That is not how it works. It was not overnight for you. So the level of grace that you extended to yourself to take that step you also have to be able to extend it to your loved ones as they watch you make this change for you. But it does not mean that they have to change. They may be okay with who they are and what they do.
Yeah. And so I always tell my clients, you're here, you're in this seat, you're working on you. And if this person continues to be who they are, the therapy is going to be the tool that empowers you to not only take your voice back, but to be in a relation where it's no longer impacting you and you're triggered because you're working on yourself. You can't expect the person who you're coming into therapy about who has caused some type of trauma, like you said, to change overnight if they change. Because 9 times out of 10, they're not coming to therapy at all. And so again, how do you want to be in relation with the person that's the same, but you've changed? What does that now look like? It will never go back to what it was because you've evolved through therapy. And that's even hard for some of my clients too. And some of them kind of go through a grieving process with that because they're shedding some old patterns, some old behaviors. And it's like, wow, you know, I'm no longer showing up in that space. So it's a challenge, but it's always greater on the other side once you actually go through and do your work.
I like that. I'm actually just posting what you're saying. Go through and do your work.
Yeah.
And so one of the other things I wrote was, how'd you say it? Grieving basically is a natural part, or is natural as you shed your old behaviors. And I think that that's important. Yeah, because it's painful. I always tell people that therapy, we have this movement now where people say therapy is dope, therapy is fun. And I'm like, therapy is freeing and therapy is painful. So because it is a process, it is work, and you got to keep driving that train. And then you get to that point where you're like, that was dope.
Yeah.
But you got to do the work.
That's true.
If it's dope all the time,
and
you're not doing the work.
Get a new therapist. Get a new therapist. Get a new therapist.
She or he is broken. I'm just kidding, y'all.
Yes.
Y'all do the work. Do you. But it's work.
Yeah, no, it is work. And anything, you know, that grows, you're going to go through some type of pain process. You really are. You know, that's why they call it growing pains. And challenges are not fun, you know, they're not easy, but, you know, coming to therapy, it starts that process, but the real work happens in between sessions. So you have to, you know, show up and really put in the work in between. So when you show it back to your therapist, you can say, hey, this worked, this didn't work. You know, how can I, you know, get some stability or, you know, gain this back or, you know, this is traumatic for me, just whatever it is that they're processing. But you have to, again, do those little inner workings in between sessions. Because other than that, like, the therapist really wouldn't know if this is really working, and you really wouldn't know if it's working. So yeah, it is painful, but I always tell my clients, I am right here with you. I am right here with you.
Okay,
and
Dr.
I've been
Howard.
through the process, so I get it.
Right. There you go. There you go. My name is Sharon. I have a therapist. Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Tell the people, Dr. Howard, leave them with something that you feel, some lasting tips that will help them as they move from a place of feeling like they have to be guilty to a place of saying, you know what, I'm worth more. I understand who I am and that I can get through this on the other side. What tips can you leave them that will help their thought process kind of project them in a positive way?
One, don't argue your way into forcing someone to see your point of view. The arguing is not going to change the way someone treats you or talk to you. That just really kind of add more fuel, because everybody wants to be right. So don't even waste your time arguing. If you feel that you really need an outlet, you need to express it, I would say actually get a therapist. So you, again, can develop the communication skills to talk to that person about how they are creating this anxiety or whatever it is that they're creating within you. But don't go at it alone, because again, it'll just be fire with fire and nothing will actually change. To be accountable for your part, like look at how you're showing up. And some people always look like, well, it's their fault, but it takes two to tango. There's something in there that you can definitely be accountable for, that you can change within a relationship so that it could go a little bit smoother. That may be talking less, that may be hanging out less.
Right.
That could be getting your own apartment and not living in your parents' house. It could be, it could just be, again, something as drastic as that, or just something as small as, again, setting those boundaries so that you don't have just the continue of a poor relationship. And then third of all, I would say, make sure that if you enforce a boundary that you stick to it. So if you know that when you say no, or if you say yes to something and they're going to scream and have an adult tantrum, let them sit with that tantrum and you still continue and stick with your boundary. They won't die from that tantrum. I promise you, they will not die. They will be okay.
No, they may be upset, but they'll be okay.
Yeah, they will. They will live, and you'll feel better for it. And it may at first kind of feel awkward or just like, oh my gosh, and you may even feel your own self-guilt. But the more you get in a practice of saying no and allowing them to have that tantrum wherever they're having it at, okay, let them have it. If they're having it in a text message, don't respond. If they're having it on a telephone call, you know what? I gotta go. I have a pot of rice boiling on the stove, and you hang up. You do it politely, but you just remove yourself from the situation, because you don't have to engage with anyone's foolishness. You just don't.
All right, y'all. Y'all heard it here tonight. If you are in relationships, family, friends, workplace, pretty much, Dr. Holly says, hey, if you're being taken advantage of and you're being taken for granted, these are the tips that you need to be doing to get back on track. Just a few, but you can also do them with some support. And that support can look like having a therapist. So do what you have to do. Protect your peace as you're trying to establish healthy relationships, but also understand that they may not change in those relationships, but you can still do what you need to do for you. That's what I heard. Did I get it all right?
Yes, you did.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So here's a couple of additional takeaways, because I'm going to repeat what Dr. Holly said. Don't argue your way into forcing someone to see your view. Right. Get a therapist to learn communication skills and how to address your concerns. You got? Okay. Be accountable for your part. How are you showing up? Like, what are you doing? Make sure or not doing. Yes. And then make sure you stick to and enforce whatever boundary or boundaries you put in place. It may be painful, she says, but it will benefit you in the long run. Dr. Holly, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
You're welcome. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. So before we go, please tell the viewers how they can find you on social media, and if you have any upcoming events that you want them to know about.
Thank you. So you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Life First Therapy LLC. Life First Therapy LLC. I am also on Twitter at Holly N. Sawyer. And I started a support group for my professional women of color. So for those people who may not have me as their therapist, but they want a support group, I do it once a month. And our next meetup will be Friday, January the 8th. And I'll be posting that along on Instagram and Facebook and things like that for anyone who wants to tend to purchase a ticket.
Okay, so the support group is in, and it's for professional women, right?
Professional women of color, yes.
Color. Trying
it's
to put
called
all this
Power
in the
Up.
Okay.
Yes, Power Up.
All right. Called Power Up. Y'all got that? This is awesome. And you're in Philadelphia.
I am in Philadelphia, yes.
All right. Oh, y'all, we have people all over. We have made this 31-day event, literally, it has been international. as we had Dr. Susay Radigan join us from Montego Bay, Jamaica. And so we have crossed over the waters. All right. So you guys have it. Dr. Holly, thank you again for joining me.
Sure.
And so that concludes our 31 days of healthy relationship tips, day 13. We still have half the month to go. So y'all don't get tired now. This is good information. And it's free. You can't pass this up. It's free. This is valuable and it's filled with so many nuggets. So please don't stop sharing this information and tuning in. We need you to keep listening. This is stuff to prepare you for 2020. Don't stop. And until tomorrow.
All right.
I'm saying goodbye. Say bye, Dr. Holly.
Bye, everybody.